Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we assemble to explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, 1 minute at a time. In this, our 6th season, we are looking at the Avengers. I'm Andy Nelson from the Next Real Film Podcast.
And I'm Pete Wright, and mag-lev is in English.
Oh, look at that. Today we're talking about Minute 79, which begins with Tony's tech jargon and ends with Hulk failing to pick up Mjølnir. Back on the show, we have Jason Dittmer. Hello, Jason.
Hello, everybody.
Real rabble-rouser. That's what we've got here.
Yes.
Real trouble.
Well, especially when it comes to all this science between Steve and Tony. This is this point where we get a lot of science-y talk from Tony. The stator control unit can reverse the polarity long enough to disengage mag-lev. Oh, isn't it beautiful?
So, all right. Are we going to talk about this?
I feel like we need to.
What is the mag-lev system driving?
Well, they don't define that, of course, but yeah.
So where are my assumption is I kind of build this thing in my head is that the magnets are somehow propelling out of the exterior of the blades, like moving them around, because would you put the magnets somehow in the center of the rotor? I don't think that's how that would work.
My guess, listen to me standing up for the science of the shows. This is or the movies. This is
right.
Somebody write down the date. That the mag-lev is on the ring around the rotor.
Yeah, that's what I was.
They kind of turn them all on and to push them around.
That's kind of was my assumption. Kind of when you have like the mag-lev trains or something. You know, the magnets on those tracks, the polarity of the magnets moves and it kind of propels the train along the tracks. And that was kind of my sense of the mag-lev, how it engages these rotors. And I think it's two rotors working in tandem that we, will get a better look at when Tony ends up kind of sandwiched between them in a few minutes.
Yeah.
The way that he's talking is the stator, which is the stationary part of the system. And so what he is wanting to do here with this motor is to get the stator to change the polarity to kind of force the rotors to spin slower so that he can slip out.
Yes. Okay.
And so when Steve says speak English, which is really just, can you say that in less sciencey words? Mm-hmm. I guess it all boils down to the red lever. And I guess I wonder, why is it that they've built a red lever into the system?
That's my question. Because there were two things that could possibly go wrong with a red lever. One is, I guess, it could slow down the mag-lev. But the other is, if you pull that red lever, at what point does the rotor just start falling apart to pieces? I have this image of the blades just all coming out of the whole thing, which is would be an extraordinary bit of failure. So it seems like a strange thing to put behind a red lever, and I guess I'm okay with it because Steve manages to show to sort of save the day, which he needs to do, but kind of he also doesn't, which I guess we'll talk about maybe shortly.
Can I just say, I think the real problem here is you have like the equivalent of a Tesla, right? Where everything is in a black box, everything is computer controlled and highly sophisticated. And then you have this big 20th century lever, like where on the Tesla do you see the emergency handle that, does something?
Right.
They don't even have, doorknobs on the Teslas.
Yeah, right. The whole thing is designed so weirdly in a scripted way to make after Steve has his line, speak English, to give Tony something simple to say, right? It ends up feeling like, well, we need to dumb it down so much that it just boils down to flipping a lever. And it ends up coming across that way where it's like, okay, we're just going to put this red lever here because that's the physical version of breaking down the science of what Tony's trying to say. And I just feel like, okay, I get it. It's here for a joke. But at the same time, it ends up not really making a lot of sense when you really think about it. Yeah, let's just put this giant red lever here on the wall. I mean, it is not small. It is a big red lever that Steve has to pull to do all of this. And it does make it seem like, okay, this is just here for a joke.
It actually renders the disengaging of the mag-lev system the equivalent of like bleeding the pipes to your house. Like, it's really a dumb lever. It's not even a well-designed sort of lever. in terms of, lever judgment.
I've seen better levers.
I've seen better levers. Let's just say there are better levers.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a school of like a lever judgment?
It's actually it's a two-part series of classes that you go through when you go through the Shield pipe program.
Yeah, you come out as a certified lever lover.
What I think is really funny about this lever that we end up putting on the wall here, I don't understand it. We get a shot of Steve looking at it around, 15 seconds into this minute. And it's this red lever that looks like it only goes a quarter turn. And it's got several levels of marks that kind of go along with it. The first set is just pretty even as far as like, 1 degree or so. I don't know how often that would be. Then you have a second set, the next set out. It goes from 2 marks to 3 marks and then back to 2 marks. So I'm not exactly sure what that is supposed to represent. The last set of marks it goes from thin lines all the way to thick lines, which I guess makes sense as far as a power marking. But otherwise, I'm like, I don't understand. Like, this must be something you really have to learn and understand in lever school, because like the layers of these markings really doesn't end up making any sense to me as I look at it. Like, what am I supposed to get out of this?
No, it doesn't, especially because the description of what, Tony says alongside of the lever is that it will slow down the thing long enough, which implies to me that the quarter turn is like on some sort of a timer, and that it will slowly, like an old school kitchen timer, it'll go tick, 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 ding, and it'll get back to its regular set, which is like it, levels up the dumb on this lever. Like, I don't understand the function of the lever, and this doesn't make it any better. Like Tony's translating it to quote English.
Just like to imagine the set design guy who's listening to this podcast and just crying because he spent like 2 afternoons making it, and he's like, I don't like my lever.
I think that's actually, like, no disrespect to levers everywhere. I think the problem that I have is, and the reason I feel like digging into it a little bit is, I think it's a joke that is not made for me. Right? Like, it's a gag. It's a gag that I just don't think plays. Like, it's a physical gag to diminish Steve in Tony's eyes as somebody who's incapable of doing this without the most rudimentary of instruction. And it boils down all of Steve's ignorance in the form of a lever. And I think that is made as a joke, and I don't think it plays very well. That is the whole point that I want to make.
I think you may be giving it too much credit as a joke. I mean, I think it's like the existential dilemma of all superhero films, which is you try to tell a story that has any level of complexity, but it always has to come down to something physical that can be surmounted.
Or punched, or in this case, pulled.
Yeah.
Okay.
But how does it play with Steve? As somebody who's kind of done some more studying of Steve specifically in your research for your book, my understanding of Steve is that when he was injected with the super soldier serum, it increased a lot of things within his body, including his smarts and his intelligence and his strategic mind, all of that sort of stuff. Is there a level that kind of dumbing it down so much for Steve, the way that we're doing here, is actually working against the idea of where Steve should be as far as a superhero?
I don't think there's, God, someone's going to call me out on being wrong here, but I don't think there was ever any evidence that it increased his intelligence or anything like that. I think it's purely his body. Certain other, but it's all aspects of his body: endurance, healing capability, a little bit, that kind of thing. I think the strategic mind, so to speak, is a kind of reflection of his military experience, which, of course, makes no sense when you consider how short the war was compared to his subsequent career, that somehow he's a mastermind no other superhero could ever match. But I think it is a kind of deification of his military experience, that he's kind of thinks tactically in that way. So, no, I mean, I kind of think, he's never one of the big, there's a ton of scientists in the Marvel universe, way overrepresented in my experience, but he's not one of them. He really is. He needs someone to tell him what to do, and I think that I buy that bit in the film.
Okay, well, and maybe that was just my misunderstanding of where all of this was, like what it brought for him. So maybe yeah, that makes more sense then.
I mean, he's not dumb. I want to be clear.
No, sure.
But he's normal, smart, supernatural moral compass, I think is a good way of putting it.
Gotcha.
I do think that's important to remember, though, that the duration of his military career was brief.
Yeah.
And that it's okay for him not to have seen all the levers in his limited experience.
I mean, when you think about mid-20th century, levers, you think like rusty, creaky. He's probably never seen a sleek shield engineered.
Right. And who are we kidding? It was probably a turny thing anyway when he saw it. It was a dial of some sort.
Yeah. Oh, God, that was the worst.
We do have another example here of Steve and his acrobatics in the bowels of a damaged ship over open sky. Again, I question his judgment, but Pete, I just have to keep thinking of him as just another monkey in the tree.
Doesn't that help
his
you?
Natural environment. It really does. It really does. There's no fear about any of this.
There's no fear. It's okay. He'll be fine because he's going to go back home and live in the canopy.
Well, I would make a different argument, which is that Steve loves New Jersey. He's motivated. He was at the camp there in the military. He has New Jersey connections, and so he probably, unlike Tony, really cares about the people and wants to make sure this device doesn't fall. And he's willing to risk his life to save the fine and, in case they're listening, upstanding citizenry of New Jersey.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right. We also live for the Garden State.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
Here.
Mm-hmm.
We do cut on action, and we come back down into the lower docking area where we find Thor getting thrown through, I don't know, it looks like a giant stack of pelican cases is kind of what it looks like. And he gets up. What I like about this shot of him, it's a close-up shot of as he wipes some blood from his nose and then smiles, is that the shot actually starts out as kind of a Dutch angle a little bit. And I don't know if that's a nod to kind of the Branagh touch that Branagh lent so much to the Thor film, but it's a little bit of a Dutch angle on Thor that kind of then levels itself out as Thor looks for Hulk and looks at the blood and smiles and all that sort of stuff. It's a fun little shot. This is also where he calls Mjølnir. We also get the return of the ballet hippo Hulk here because he's very quiet. I don't know why Hulk doesn't come through the smashed crates that he just threw Thor through, but threw Thor through. I guess that makes sense.
I didn't expect the level of challenge to hit you quite that way. Yeah,
it was a very Dr. Seuss moment I just had there. But he calls Mjølnir, and I guess Hulk decides to kind of tiptoe around to the side to come back in from another angle at Thor to give Thor enough time to get Mjølnir and call him through. Who knows where he had left his hammer, but clearly Thor has as little regard for the ship as Tony, as Bruce, because he doesn't care. He just calls Mjølnir, which tears a giant hole through the ship, ending up in his hand just in time to hit Hulk.
I think we should get a Marvel one-shot about the guy who was just walking down the aisle or the gangway or whatever you call it on a ship, and then just Mjølnir rips through the wall and whacks him on its way. And he never even appears in the movies, but his life is unendingly altered forever by the injuries caused.
Well, yeah, because the rest of the show is essentially just a battle with the insurance companies because S.H.I.E.L.D. has terrible coverage.
It's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
It's like the start of The Incredibles, right? It's that little guy who's injured by the supers, and now
that
he's
was the
suing
guy.
them.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so Thor and Mjølnir, again, why didn't he bring it from the start?
But again, it's because this moment is cool.
Well, that's what we have, right? We like seeing Thor call his hammer, right? That's really what we're getting here.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of the use of the rack focus? We've seen it a couple times, prominently when we have Natasha in Kolkata, when she pulls the gun on Bruce and the camera racks to the tip of her gun, putting her out of focus. And then there was another time of Loki when he's walking in the hall. It's not a rack focus, but it's a very shallow focus, and he walks into focus. We're getting a nice rack focus here as it racks. I mean, the use of this camera trick, it's not really a trick, but this camera tool
function
to kind of change function of changing focus. I mean, how does it play? Do we need to do this? What is it giving us by having us kind of do this rack focus from Thor to his hand as he reaches out?
I think it just looks good. I mean, could it be? I don't know that there's necessarily any other purpose to it than I do think it looks good. I have a different problem with this sequence, which I will lob soon.
Well, so I'm wondering if I'm going to where Pete's going here, but I wonder if it's because you have to visually, like the question is, how does Thor call Mjølnir, right? So, visually you get a little twitch of the hand and a kind of, like he's inviting Mjølnir to dance. Please join me on the dance floor. And somehow this mystical connection across, so much distance, Mjølnir knows to come. I would argue, it's subtle. It's the camera technique you're describing works to call attention to the subtlety of it. But I wonder if they had gone for something slightly more realistic, maybe make him whistle for it, like it's a horse coming, or maybe to actually call out its name. I mean, that would have been, just so everyone knows what's going on. The way you might call for your dog to come in after it's been running in the backyard. I think there's a dose of realism could have gone a long way here.
I mean, you were a fan of the comics. How would that normally be treated in the comics when Thor would call Mjølnir?
I mean, he does just reach out. But that begs the question, like, if he reaches out to shake someone's hand, does Mjølnir get confused and come and smash the person he's trying to shake hands with? I mean, it's the subtlety of it is perhaps its own undoing. I mean,
perhaps by the time we get to Thor Love and Thunder and we have the confusion between hammer and axe as I don't know, suddenly it's way too personified. Maybe by that point, we're definitely getting a confused Mjølnir. Wait, do I come now? Is that me? You're looking at me? It's that whole thing.
Right.
Me or him? Who?
Are you trying to shake his hand, or do you want me to chop his hands off?
Right. Should I go through him? Or
I think a more intentional gesture would probably go a long way to breaking down some of this confusion.
Oh my goodness! I didn't know that was the problem that I would end up having with the sequence until you guys began litigating it so thoroughly.
You were going somewhere else, Pete. You were going somewhere else. I beg your pardon, please.
No, not at all. I now have that problem too. It's just really, I think it raises an additional question when you think about it at this level. Does it ever make you second guess your own fandom of Thor as a young person?
Oh no, never look back.
Never look back. No,
never question.
My bigger issue is that everything slows down for this set of, I think, 3 shots. Everything slows down to the point where when it pulls back to the wide shot and Hulk is running toward him, it feels like, where was Hulk when he was kneeling and calling Mjølnir? Shouldn't Hulk have been, smacking him around some more? Yeah, it feels like it's just not. I don't know if I guess like turn rules were in play and he hadn't rolled his D20 yet, so
he lost a turn.
That's right. That's the part I struggle with more than anything. I just feel like blocking this sequence is it falls out of the scene reality because they took a breath to do this weird rack focus that I don't know that we needed. We already know how he calls Mjølnir. We've had movies of it. We've seen him do it in this movie already. Like, we didn't need the delicate cutaway to his fingertips. So that's my problem with it.
Yeah, because when we do cut to that wide, Hulk is already around the corner. Like, he'd already done his tiptoeing to the point where, there he is. I guess I don't need to tiptoe anymore.
Yeah.
And so he charges. And then the whole thing plays, I mean, it's a fine shot. It works nicely. We do get a speed ramp as Thor hits Hulk in the face, and kind of the speed ramp,
which is cool.
Everything slows down. Yeah, as Hulk goes flying back into the plane.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah, no, it's a great shot. It really plays well.
And there are actually shot after shot. Once we get through Tiptoe Hulk, the speed ramp for the hammer is fantastic. He throws him into, I guess, what is that, a Harrier jet or something? He throws him into a jet. Yeah, and then Hulk rips off the wing and hucks it at Thor, and Thor does the I don't know, wasn't that where's the last most dramatic use of this? I'm on my knees sliding and the thing is going over my face that we get Thor doing here, like Face Off or something. I mean, it had to be a John Woo movie, right? Yeah, like it's just an awesome like action shot, and everything about it, I think, looks great. And then it like chops off the top of that Jeep. I just think this is a very well architected set of shots, all leading to, again, another great physical joke. Hulk is pinned to the deck by Mjølnir, and that is what I wanted to see. Right? Like, I do wonder why can't he just rip up the floor? And I don't know. That's always a thing we talk about, but
he's not pinned to the floor. He's just specifically trying to pick Mjølnir up. Like, he can slide his hand out, but he wants to get it to throw. So I think that's why he does what he does there.
Yeah.
But to that end, it leads to kind of the end of it. I do love that moment as Thor throws Mjølnir at him. The fact that Hulk grabs it is a great surprise. You weren't expecting that. It just kind of builds to this final moment here. I think I do like. I certainly have debated about this Hulk that we have in this particular film, who is not one who changes size when he gets angrier, because he certainly gets angrier in the last scene and this scene. Like, we kind of keep seeing him stepping up his anger, but he doesn't change size. They decided this Hulk will always stay this same size. He's not going to grow. Is that something that either of you think about with this Hulk, or does it really? Do you prefer that he doesn't change size?
I don't think I've ever thought about it in the MCU.
I think he grows to exactly the size of the aircraft carrier cavern that he's inhabiting. So
don't we all, Jason? Don't we all?
He's the right size for the set, and that's how it's going to work.
And that's what we get. Yeah. It plays well, and it builds to the end when we get Thor leaping at him. There are some cuts of action that we have toward the end of this minute, and certainly at the beginning of the next minute, where I don't think I think they were struggling figuring out how to construct it, because obviously they're shooting Chris Hemsworth on set here, and maybe they have that thing where Mark Ruffalo has kind of the big green head on top of him and he's kind of standing there. I'm not exactly sure when they started really working with that. Regardless, some of the shot construction doesn't work quite as well yet in some of these action sequences when Thor is fighting Hulk. Like, he jumps up and knees him in the face. It looks a little funky, and then he's going to grab Mjølnir here and he'll put him in a chokehold in the next minute, which is more where I struggle. But that pretty much brings us to the end of this minute. Any last thoughts about minute 79?
It's outstanding, and I just can't wait to see where 80 takes us. We got to level up.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely need that. Well, this is a good place to wrap things up then. So, Jason, thank you again so much for joining us here to talk about this minute.
Thank you all very much.
I know you've been plugging your book all week, but hey, why not plug it one more time?
I'll be honest with you, I've been plugging it for 10 years. And so
you didn't just start on your guest appearances on the Marvel movie?
No. It's all I talk about. My family is so sick of it. And I still give them a copy of it every year for Flag Day. They have 10 copies each.
That's awesome. That's so funny.
It's a book about nationalist superheroes, which are superheroes that are connected to different countries, and it traces the genre from the U.S. to Canada and to the U.K. But it's mostly about Captain America, if I'm being honest, because he is the earliest and best of the he's not literally the earliest, but he's the first one to go really big.
Yeah.
And it's available absolutely I believe on your website, but also through Amazon and anyone else who collects relatively obscure books.
Well, on that sell, make sure you go pick up your copy.
I don't think you should be selling yourself so short, relatively obscure.
I told you I've been, pitching it for 10 years. I'm running out of enthusiasm.
You've just given up.
No, it's great. I'm actually really proud of it. But it's difficult to find, I think is a safe thing to say. So follow the link that Andy's about to tell you about.
That's right. It is in our show notes, so just check the show notes. You can click on it. It'll take you right to the website where you can get your copy. Or if you don't see the link in your show notes on your podcatcher, just go to our website, marvelmovieminute.com, and you can get it there.
Thank you,
That's
Andy.
it. Yeah, absolutely. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with Jason one last time to talk about Minute 80. So, Pete, thanks as always.
If you've been wondering what Maria Hill has been doing this whole time, wonder no further, friends. Wonder no further.
Till next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is Message to the World by Anthony Vega, and this season's show art is by Winston Yabo. Find the show at truestory.fm. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.